Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for joining me. So, in less than 15 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you why there is an International Women's Day. Please like and share this video if you get value from it. I'm Dr. P and I'm a strategic business coach, and I work specifically with micro business owners to help them scale their businesses by learning strategies to improve their goals, their processes, and their operations. Really enjoy working with micro business owners. There's so much that I get to learn from them while we're going through our coaching and consulting relationship. So, earlier this week on March 8th, many of us celebrated International Women's Day, right? We sent various memes and inspirational quotes to women that we know to recognize them, to honor them, and to uplift them. I'm sure you even saw some big name companies, post on their Instagram page, their Facebook, and on their LinkedIn pages in honor of that day as well, right? Those companies also honored several of the women who work within their organization, especially women in leadership roles. It is great that women are being recognized and that they are being honored for the accomplishments that they have made, right? But why does it happen on March 8th? I mean, seriously, why March 8th? Out of all the days in the year, right? It is something that I started to think about, like, why March 8th? So because I started wondering why such a recognition and honor can't occur, why can't it occur on any other day in the year? It really got me thinking about, why is there even an International Women's Day? I mean, seriously, why do we have it? And why is it celebrated on March 8th every year? So at first, I was thinking that the reason why it is on March 8th is because March is Women's History Month here in the US. But then I realized, wait, is Women's History Month here in the US, not internationally. So that can't be the reason why there is an International Women's Day on March 8th. So I decided that I needed to figure out the answer to this question, because I wanted to know why March 8th is International Women's Day. So of course I took to the internet to do some researching to see what I could find out so I can make more sense of the day and be able to share it with all of you about why this day even exists and why it is so important. So I found out that the roots of International Women's Day go as far back as 1908. And at that time, thousands of garment workers walked the streets of New York City demanding the right to vote and protesting for improved working conditions. Those 15,000 women that took the streets, they were marching for shorter working hours, better pay, and the right to vote. So from 1909 to 1913, National Women's Day actually ended up being celebrated in the US on February 28th due to a declaration by the Socialist Party of America at that point in time. Notice it started in 1909 and finished by 1913. I found that interesting. Here's some other things that I found interesting. The protests in New York in 1908 turned into actually a global movement, to the point that Clara Zetkin, a German activist, pushed for the international recognition of women at the International Conference of Working Women in 1910. Zetkin made the proposal that every country should be celebrating a Women's Day on the same day each year. So it was the first time the concept of an International Women's Day was even talked about. So that conference was attended by 100 women from 17 countries. And guess what they did? They unanimously approved Zetkin's idea, and the International Women's Day was born. By the next year, in 1911, Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland became the first to celebrate International Women's Day. That same year, the Triangle Fire in New York City claimed the lives of over 140 working women, many of which were Italian and Jewish immigrants. So that very horrible event and that terrible fire, raised significant attention to the working conditions of women, and it became a subsequent focus of International Women's Day events. In 1913, Russia recognized International Women's Day for the first time on February 23rd. Then there were some discussions, and it was agreed upon that International Women's Day should be celebrated on March 8th. And this is because of a translation into the Gregorian calendar that we use today. Just by the way that Gregorian calendar is that widely used solar calendar that we use today. And that's how it became on March 8th. Still, I'm not quite sure why it had to be translated from the 23rd, but hey, they had a conversation, some discussions internationally, and March 8th was identified as the day, when they did that translation over to the Gregorian calendar. So remember that I mentioned the initial movement that started because women were demanding the right to vote back in New York, and that demand was seen among women all over the world. So by 1917, Russian women received the right to vote, while Britain gave the right to women in 1918 and the US in 1920. That's quite interesting, right? That it took that long for women to get the right to vote, but it got the right to vote. So we're going to flash forward to 1975 so I don't bore y'all with all the ins and outs of history and what happened with International Women's Day along the decades. So in 1975, the United Nations finally made official recognition of International Women's Day. 1975, y'all. Because remember, this day was first thought up back in 1910, but United Nations didn't officially recognize it until 1975. Makes you wonder, right? There's so much history. I really encourage you to go and look to see what that history was that led up to United Nations making this recognition in 1975. So International Women's Day became 100 years old, 2011. In that year, President Barack Obama here in the US proclaimed that March is going to be Women's History Month. I was like, what? That's how that connection was made. I was looking at it the other way around, when really and truly it was because International Women's Day was already in March that Women's History Month became March here in the US. That was also the same time that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton launched the 100 Women Initiative, empowering women and girls through international exchange. So according to the International Women's Day website, March 8th is such an important day to not only celebrate women's achievements, but also to raise awareness about women's equality and to lobby for the accelerated gender parity. And the thing is, how International Women's Day is celebrated is so different around the world. I found out that in Italy, it is called the Festa della Donna, and women use that day to spend time with each other, give each other flowers, and sit and eat cake and just spend time with each other. It is also a time for demanding change, and some companies, some organizations even take to the streets demanding the right to economic independence. In Pakistan, women use that day to take to the streets to condemn violence against women. They started doing this in 2018, and they also protest against reproductive and economic injustices. So if you've seen some colors being used on International Women's Day, you might be wondering why those colors. I mean, I was when I saw them. So I also learned that the specific colors are very symbolic for that day. And those colors originated from the Women's Social and Political Union in the UK back in 1908. And those colors are purple, green, and white. So here's what the colors mean for the day. Purple signifies justice and dignity. Green signifies hope, and white signifies purity. But in my research, I also found out that there's a little controversy around the concept of white meaning purity. When you check it out for yourself, you're going to learn a lot more about that controversy. So even though women have made significant changes since 1911, we still continue to face inequalities economically and socially. So think of how you can make a difference and take that action. I am so happy now that I know why March 8th is International Women's Day. And along the way, I found out why March is Women's History Month here in the US. So I hope you also learned a thing or two. I'm Dr. P, Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions. Remember, solutions plus actions equals results, y'all. Bye.